Good evening and welcome to The Right Side, the show where we talk about today's news, views, trends, and opinions from an admittedly conservative perspective. I'm your host, Chris Pareja, and this evening we're joined by Joel Fine. He's the president of the Conservative Forum of Silicon Valley. Full disclaimer, they've been underwriting the show for nearly 5 seasons now, and we're glad to have you in the studio, Joel.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
So, talk to us a little bit about how you got involved with the forum in the first place, because you've been there a while.
Yeah, it was actually, I guess, relatively recent. I've been kind of a quiet conservative all my life. I instinctively gravitated towards the side of the aisle that said, you know, liberty is important. Leave me alone, and I'll do what I want to do. You do what you want to do, and you know, we'll live our lives the way we want to. And then around 2008, I started waking up, especially with the election of the current regime. I said, wait a minute, you know, this is wrong. The country's going the wrong way. The state's going the wrong way. I feel like I've got to at least get informed, if not involved, and try to influence things. So I started looking for groups to participate in, found the Conservative Forum around 2009, 2010, and started attending the meetings just as a regular attendee, just watching the speakers. And pretty much as soon as I saw the first couple of them, I said, boy, these are my people. You know, I really belong here. You know, I'm very comfortable here. They have the same attitudes about life and principles about government that I do, and then they talk about it. And it was really a wonderful place. I felt at home. And so I spent a couple years just as an attendee. At the time, I was involved in another group that was dealing with voter integrity issues. And my involvement with them I think got me noticed in the forum. They asked me to sit in the board of directors, and then from there I volunteered to help out with programs. In 2014 and 2015 I was the VP of programs, and so I was actually the person that arranged the speakers. Of course, the speaker series is kind of the highlight. That's the focal point of the group. And so as VP of programs, I got to be the one who would contact speakers and arrange for particular dates and try to work out logistics and so forth. And that was a lot of fun because that was an opportunity for me to get to know and get to talk directly with these people who were very deeply involved in the conservative efforts and the conservative movement, and really, you know, get a better sense of personalities and people and so forth. And that was just a great experience for me.
Yeah. So it sounds like you went from being a quiet conservative, which is how you got to live to a ripe old age in the Silicon Valley, right? You get cut off at the knees if you get too loud too quickly. But then you moved to actually realizing that just because you were leaving people alone doesn't mean that the regime, as you said, would leave you alone, and then getting educated about it, getting involved, and now really helping to shape the voice of conservatism in the Bay Area.
Exactly, yeah, and it can be very frustrating to be a conservative in the Bay Area, as I'm sure you well know. You know, we're a relatively small minority. We're clearly outnumbered by people who don't feel the way we do. And so that, for me, is what makes it especially satisfying to be involved and participating in the Conservative Forum. It's an opportunity to really be surrounded by like-minded people and hear ideas and principles and philosophies that really resonate for me.
And so I want to go back to the whole time you've been involved in the forum. What have been some of your favorite guests, or was there some speech or multiple speeches that illuminated things for you in new ways and helped to reshape some of your philosophies or the way that you think about things?
Well, I guess, so the one event that stands out for me isn't so much the one that shaped my thinking, but one that was just, it was a real pleasure to be involved in. It was very satisfying. And that's the last August we had Gert Wilders from the Netherlands. He's a Dutch politician. He leads a party called the Freedom Party. And it was a big production to get him out here from the Netherlands. It was a much more ambitious project than we had previously undertaken, to have somebody travel that far just to visit us. And we actually, I coordinated with somebody in Florida, somebody in the, I believe it was the Miami-Dade County Republican Party, who was also arranging an event. And so they were going to have Gert Wilders speak to them a couple of days after he spoke to us. And so we were going to share travel costs. We were going to coordinate a three-legged journey and so forth. And it turned out about a month before the event happened, the people who were going to host that event, their venue called them and said, look, this guy's too much of a security risk. He gets death threats all the time. You know, he's very outspoken in Europe about the threat of Islam, about Sharia law and jihadis, and that gets him noticed by people who are very prone to violence. And he lives under 24-hour armed guard, constant security, constant vigilance. And so they had to cancel their event. And so he ended up just coming to us instead of to the two events. The event itself was just an amazing experience. The security measures that he had to take were unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And he travels with a retinue of Dutch policemen. So 5 or 6 Dutch policemen had to sit in first class with him. There were people from Dutch intelligence services, all kinds of people from local police forces that also got involved. Yeah. The night of the event, we had to clear out the neighborhood. We closed down streets. We had people on the rooftops nearby preparing for just about anything. We had dogs who were sniffing for bombs. We had people who were searching bags. It was a very intense security effort, just to get this guy to come and speak, just so he could speak his mind. And to me, that sort of exemplified the principles of the conservative reform, why I'm involved in it. The right to be able to speak your mind, to be able to speak truth, when you're not threatening anybody, is just so fundamentally important to me. And the fact that it's under threat, the fact that that this guy has to go to these measures just to be in public, just to meet with people and to speak, to me, that just makes me more determined to hear from people like that, to support people like that. And so that particular event, when Gert Wilders came in August of last year, that's the one that stands out for me as the most exciting, the most satisfying experience that I've been involved in the Conservative Forum.
Well, and it's interesting that here in California, where we often crumble to the pressures of outside voices saying, hey, we want to boycott, we want to not have this person in our community, they're not welcome here. And Florida did cave. And you, as an organization, stood up and said, no, we're going to hear them. And that there was heavy police presence and the coordination that went into that. It is impressive that it was executed the way it was.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone from the heckler's veto almost to the murderer's veto. I mean, the people that don't want to hear from Gert Wilders and his like, you know, they don't just heckle, they perpetrate violence, and,
right.
and it's awful. And so, like I said, that just makes me much more determined to make these things happen.
Yeah, and it's interesting. He's not the only controversial speaker you've had. You've had John Yoo. We had the pleasure of interviewing in this studio Sheriff Joe Arpaio as well, mm-hmm. and he took a little different approach. He was interviewed by a Spanish-speaking station, Telemundo, I believe, interviewed him outside of here, and he engaged them, and there were protesters for that night for him. And he actually was disappointed by the caliber of your protesters. They were hugging him, taking pictures with him, and relatively friendly, and he was hoping for much more from California, but...
Yeah, what can I say? I mean, I've heard that from other people, too, that the protesters on the left tend not to be quite on the ball.
Yeah, well, but it is nice that you're bringing in speakers that other people would just say, no, that's too controversial. But even they have a good time interacting with people of differing viewpoints. So that's something to be commended. What's been the most interesting speaker that you've had to book, or a couple that you've had to book in the time when you were in that role with the forum?
Let's see. So I guess one very interesting speaker was Alan West. We had him, I think it was a year ago, just about today, last May. He's a former congressman from Florida. Gave a number of very prominent speeches, impassioned defenses of the Constitution, of freedoms, really going back to first principles. And he's a very interesting individual. He can speak really eloquently about a lot of different things. He can talk about, you know, the arc and sweep of history, the things that happened in the 6th and 7th century that set the stage for what's happening now in Europe, in Asia, and in Africa, and so he came and gave his perspective on America, its role in the world, the military, and so forth. He's a very interesting guy. I was disappointed that he didn't get returned to the Congress and continue to represent his district in Florida. But he's still prominent. He's writing, he's blogging, he's out there on the speaking circuit. He's
on Fox News quite often as well, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, any other interesting speakers, or just interesting logistically to have to bring in? Because you've gone, like you said, all the way to the Netherlands, people from around this country and other places. Any others that come to mind for you?
I don't know about individual speakers, but we've had a few organizations that we've worked very well with in the past. So National Review, for example, we've had, I think, 4 of their speakers in the last year. We had Jim Garrity, James Lilex, Kevin Williamson, Jay Nordlinger was also from National Review, and we're having Andy McCarthy coming up in August. So a lot of different people associated with that group, and we find that they're very able and articulate defenders of the principles that we hold dear, the principles of American liberty, and so we like to work with them. We like their speakers. We've also had a number of events with Hillsdale College.
That was going to be my next question about other partnerships such as with Hillsdale.
Yeah, so we've done a few joint events with Hillsdale about once a year for the past 3 or 4 years. Where they'll send one of their teachers, one of their professors over to talk about some topic, and we'll actually jointly sponsor the event with Hillsdale and their alumni association. And so we'll get some new people in the forum as well for those events, people who have an association with Hillsdale but aren't necessarily connected with the forum, and vice versa. And so that's a nice way to interact and mix and have people who, again, are like-minded get to know each other,
right.
Which is really important because, again, we're a minority in the area, and so the more we can provide a support structure to one another to interact with each other, to get to know each other, I think that helps. That helps us kind of put some oomph behind our voice.
Right. Well, one of the things we've always appreciated as a show is that often we'll get to interview some of your guests before they speak for the evening, and so we pride ourselves in being able to punch way above our weight as far as the people you would normally see at a local level TV show. But you also have reach into the media. You've had letter writing campaigns into the Mercury and other newspapers within the area, and you've also had CNN or even the local news, not CNN, C-SPAN.
C-SPAN, yeah.
And other members of the local news come to forum events, I guess partially to see what the other half looks like, or the other small percentage looks like, the animals in the wild. But talk to us about some of the speakers that they've come to witness, or interviews that they've come to harvest from the forum.
Yeah, so the local news people generally tend to come to the forum on nights that are very close to an election, because they as you said, they go into the wild and they say, okay, let's go find the conservative perspective. Well, here's a convenient spot. There's a bunch of them that gather. Now we can ask conservatives about how they feel about the election. Right. And other than that, everybody in the Bay Area, it's easy to find a liberal. It's easy to find a progressive, and so they come to us a lot of times on election night or near election night to get that perspective. C-SPAN comes to us occasionally for particularly prominent speakers who they find interesting for one reason or another. They don't share their reasons why they're interested in particular speakers, but the ones that they've been interested in, they come and record the entire event. They archive it, and then they generally broadcast it on C-SPAN, say 2 to 4 weeks later. I think the most recent one was James Lilex. Right. I think they came to his event.
And Alan West, I think they were there for that one as well.
I believe that's correct, but I don't remember for sure.
Right.
They expressed interest in John Eastman, but then for whatever reason they decided not to. And like I said, they don't share with me the reasons, but I would assume it has to do with what they think will attract an audience, what they find an interesting topic.
And availability of staff and other things probably plays in as well.
Could be.
So talk to us a little bit about some of the other programs that you're involved in, whether they be in the community, writing, people who don't just want to necessarily sit and be educated, but actually get out and do things. You've had some outreach programs even in recent weeks for that.
Yeah, so, at each meeting, of course, we have a number of tables where people can exhibit and talk about their causes, and so we have a lot of different groups that come and participate in that way. They'll get an exhibitor table, and they'll present. So, for example, the Silicon Valley area Republican women, or the South Peninsula area Republican Spark. I forget exactly what the acronym is, but they'll come and they'll get a table or national
or the
NRA, or the NRA. They're regulars, or even candidates for office who want to come and get to know conservatives, get conservatives to know them. They'll come and take an exhibitor table, and we offer it at no cost to the exhibitors, and that gives them an opportunity to interact one-on-one or a few on one before and during our meetings. So that people can get exposed to their cause or their candidacy, and we think that's another great avenue for conservatives to connect, to learn about each other.
Mm-hmm. And I've actually taken advantage of that in a previous life when I was running for things, and the crowd is always very supportive. They will ask you the hard questions because they are educated voters, and they definitely have opinions, but it is a great venue to get to know others who might be like-minded.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been involved in things like scholarships, outreach to college or high school level students and things, like I said, the media writing initiatives. Anything else that people should keep an eye out for?
Well, we love it when our members write into, say, the San Jose Mercury News or other local publications to provide the conservative perspective. And we don't necessarily all agree with one another on every issue, but we really like it when people who are involved in the forum, connected with the forum in some way, get their voices heard. So we often, we do have a group that writes letters and tries to get them published, letters to the editor at the Mercury News and elsewhere. And so we encourage that. We like to keep people active and energized that way as well.
Okay. And any particular speakers that are exciting that are coming up? I mean, we normally go over them at the end of our show, but are there some that are in the wings that you can give us sneak previews about?
Yeah, in fact, we haven't announced this yet, but in
You're
October,
hearing it here first.
Yep, here first. Our October speaker is going to be Dinesh D'Souza, who's a very well-known author and filmmaker and pundit, and he's very prominent, he's got a lot of interesting things to say. He's got a fascinating background. Some of his experiences are remarkable, and so we're really looking forward to that. We're excited about that.
And that's provided the IRS doesn't come after him again, coincidentally, by the time that his speech rolls around, right?
We may have to do a remote connection from jail. Who knows?
Yeah, he was one of the ones that got caught up in some of those audits and investigations for people of questionable position. Of course, it wouldn't be put that way, but he's the one that he did a very controversial movie about Obama in the past, and it just coincidentally ended up with extra scrutiny after that.
Absolutely, yep. Called prosecutorial discretion.
Yes.
And they use their discretion to the hilt.
Yes, indeed. Awesome. So Dinesh D'Souza is coming. Others that are coming over the next couple of months? Well,
we talked a little bit about Andy McCarthy. He's very well known with National Review. Let's see, we're going to have a return visit from Evan Sayet for something on the lighter side in December. We'll have Kem Edwards, who's a very well-known Second Amendment advocate. He'll be coming to talk to us, I believe, in September. Let me think, who else? Yaron Brook from the Ayn Rand Institute. Nick Adams, who's a regular on Fox News. Let me think.
Well, lots of good content.
Oh, one other one. Dr. History, Charlie Self, is coming in November.
Okay, great.
So he'll be our post-election speaker. He'll be able to put whatever just happened in the November election into perspective.
I think regardless of how that shakes out, you're going to need lots of Kleenex at that event.
My VP of programs, Erica Amorati, was suggesting grief counselors.
Grief counselors would be good, yeah. And if people could donate their time as grief counselors versus are you going to look for government funding for this? Yeah,
we'll stay as far away from that as we can.
I somehow assumed that might be your answer. So with the election coming up, are you seeing a pretty even mix of people that are excited about the election, scratching their head? Is it too early to tell after the announcements this week of Kasich and Cruz dropping out? Is there a general climate that you're seeing at the forum?
Well, it's been a very eventful 6 months. I mean, a lot has changed and evolved over the course of the campaign. Right. And so, emotions and energy are running high.
Right.
I guess I would say that there's just tremendous frustration from the past 7 years of the Obama administration and their relentless assaults on liberty and the Constitution and constitutional order. And that's something I think that the members of the forum have in common. We're all very frustrated and eager to get him out of the White House and put somebody else in charge.
Right.
Different people in the forum have different opinions, some very strongly held about who they prefer in the campaign.
Right.
And so, of course, as people entered the race and then dropped out of the race, people felt differently about the individuals in question.
Right.
We did a straw poll a couple of months ago, and I don't want to talk about the results here other than to say that Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton didn't get a lot of support from the conservative forum.
That's surprising.
Yeah, oddly enough. But yeah, it was clear that the conservative forum is not unanimous about who they would have preferred on the Republican side. But again, there is so much pent-up frustration and dissatisfaction with the Obama era that we're really eager to turn the next page and move on to the next chapter.
The question I would have is, traditionally, we were joking in the green room before the show about many times Democrats will unite around whoever it is that's the presumptive nominee, and even people who would normally kill each other out in the streets. You've got, the Klan working next to minority rights activists on the Democrat side, or the very wealthy right next to people who are extremely poor, and people like the Google types that are pairing up with union types. These are not normally mixes you would see, but they'll all rally behind the Democrat that's chosen. Where on the Republican side, a lot of times there is that diversity. A lot of times people will sit out if their candidate doesn't make it through to the primary. Do you sense that there's enough frustration within the members to unite whoever? I mean, there's the presumption that Trump is probably the one at this point, but regardless of who it is, magic or whatever occurs, do you think that by and large you'll see that frustration turn to voter activism in this cycle?
That's a great question. I mean, you're right that the Democrats have a propensity for building coalitions that the Republicans seem to struggle with. I mean, I think you were being facetious when you said people who would kill each other, but
not really.
Literally, literally, Islamists and gays. In some countries, Islamists throw gays off buildings.
Or smash their heads in with bricks.
Yeah, literally kill them. And yet, over here in the United States, those are the people that are part of the Democrat coalition. So they find ways to set aside their differences and work towards the things that they have in common.
Right.
And yeah, it would be great to see people on the other side, on the conservative Republican side, doing that as well. Hard to tell. I mean, there's a lot of energy, pro and con, about Trump. There's a lot of speculation about what he'll be like. He hasn't been a politician, and that's both good and bad, right? It works to his advantage, it works to his disadvantage. But one of the things that makes for him is it makes him very unpredictable. Right. It's really hard to say, well, based on what he's done before as a whatever, governor, senator, representative, here's what I think he'll do in the future. He has no background like that. Right. And so it's very difficult to predict other than based on what he's said in the last few months. And even that's somewhat erratic. So really difficult to predict. And so, I'm trying to get out of the business of making predictions, because 6 months ago I would have laughed off the Trump campaign, and most people I think would have. Right. But now it's obviously very serious. He's the presumptive nominee. Right. And so it's hard to say what's going to happen.
Or whether or not people have enough animosity in the Hillary direction or the Sanders direction to get active for that reason. Mm-hmm. So time will tell. Yep. But if people want more information about the forum, I know that there's a new URL as well, but what's the best way for them to find the website?
Yeah, so it's cfsv.us, CFSV, so that stands for Conservative Forum Silicon Valley. So we shorten it up, cfsv.us, and that's the easiest way. We've got a number of links from there where if somebody wants to, say, find out who our upcoming speakers are, wants to register for a meeting, wants to find out who is on the board of directors, wants to send us an email, lots of things you can get on our website. And so I encourage people to go there to get more information about us.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Joel. If you'll hold on for just a moment, we'll be back after a word from our underwriters, the Conservative Forum.
Some people think that a meeting of conservatives in Silicon Valley could fit in a small room. In fact, when the Conservative Forum was founded in 2003, we did meet in a small room, a coffee shop in San Jose. It doesn't get more grassroots than this. It may surprise you that there are thousands of people right here in Silicon Valley who share your principles of liberty, free markets, and limited government. Since our humble beginnings in that coffee shop, we've outgrown 3 meeting halls. From San Jose to Gilroy to Mill Valley, we bring hundreds of people together each month from all over the Bay Area to promote the principles of American liberty. How do we do it? It starts with a stellar lineup of speakers. Speakers like Steve Forbes, Senator Jim DeMint, Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Andrew Breitbart, Pamela Geller, and many others. These speakers passionately articulate our shared principles and remind us why conservatism isn't just the smart choice, it's also the moral choice. Our monthly meetings are only one dimension of the forum. We underwrite The Right Side, a monthly television show on cable access channel KMVT. We also host a monthly Constitution discussion group and provide tables at our meetings for more than a dozen local groups who share our love of liberty to promote their specific cause. The Conservative Forum is the premier place in Silicon Valley for conservatives to gather, become invigorated, motivated, and empowered. We welcome guests to our monthly meetings and offer special discounted pricing to first-time visitors. Take a look at our speaker lineup in the coming months and join us to learn why we say liberty is made in America.
Or more than that, maybe 3 months.
And welcome back to The Right Side. That was a word from our underwriter, the Conservative Forum. Now, we appreciate the fact that they've been underwriting the show for now our 5th season. But what they're really best known for, as Joel was talking about, was their speaker series. They have such high-quality speakers from around the country and around the world that people gather on a monthly basis to come and see what's going on at the forum. And I know you wouldn't believe it, but in many cases there are 300 to 500 attendees at one of the events that occur monthly. The second Tuesday of each month at the IFES Portuguese Hall at 432 Stirling Road, about 3 minutes from here in Mountain View. In June, Yaron Brook is going to be there. He's the executive director of the Ayn Rand Institute. In July, Nick Adams, he's the founder and executive director of the Foundation for Liberty and American Greatness. And it sounds unapologetic if you ask me. But in August, Andrew McCarthy, he's a best-selling author, a senior fellow at National Review Institute, and a contributing editor will be there as well. As Joel said, you can find out more at cfsv.us. And I believe that you can still get there from theconservativeforum.com as well for more information on upcoming speakers, registration, etc. But the forum has been a great resource for the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, but also beyond. The reach through YouTube and other things that they've put out really does expand the conservative message beyond the borders of just the South Bay out into the region, the state, and the world. So we encourage you to look for more information about them at those websites. And we appreciate them greatly for making this show possible. It's been great having you on the show this evening. We appreciate having you. If you would like to get more information to us on possible guests, opinions, flaming darts, you can reach us at therightsidetv@gmail.com, or we'll look forward to seeing you in person or on the show sometime soon. Thanks again for joining us on The Right Side. Have a great night.